Hello guys, welcome back to ESENtaxa, and in today's video we are going to compare the Inpatriate regime in Italy versus the Inpatriate regime in Spain. If you're new to this channel, ESENtaxa talks about how to optimize taxes if you want to relocate in a specific country, and we are the #1 channel that in English language explain all the details of the law, of the tax law of Italy, and we also cover different jurisdictions in Europe and help you guys to understand if a specific country tax-wise makes sense for you or not. And in the description below the video you will have our email contact info@esentaxa.com and also our Calendly link to book a consultation with us, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, and mostly, very important, a tax simulation to understand with numbers if that specific country you're looking for makes sense for you, makes sense for your project, for your relocation, because maybe you want to spare a lot of taxes because your country of origin is rising the pressure of taxes, of social security, and is not going to be more efficient for you. So, in this specific video, I want to compare the Inpatriate regime in Italy with the Inpatriate regime in Spain. And if you never heard about the Inpatriate regime in Spain, is because this name actually it's known as the Beckam law. So it was an old tax regime in Spain, put in place in Spain a lot of years ago. It's known as Beckam law because the famous football player Beckam used this regime to relocate to Spain to play for the Real Madrid, and actually he benefited from this tax regime, and after some years the Spanish government changed a little bit the rules, and now the football players cannot apply it anymore, and became mostly a tax regime to attract high qualified individual, high skilled individual in Spain, and this resemble a lot the Italian Inpatriate regime. Okay, now as I'm doing here in ESENtaxa, I'm shooting this video, creating this video, talking about and comparing about the Inpatriate regime or all the tax regimes in Italy with the rest of the tax regimes in Europe. So let's check together the differences and let's make the parallelism between the Spanish Inpatriate regime, known as Beckam law, versus the Inpatriate regime in Italy. Now let's make this on the board. Let's write here Spanish Inpatriate regime, ER, let's call it Inpatriate regime, and Italian Inpatriate regime. So, the main point of the Spanish Inpatriate regime is that instead of paying ordinary taxes on your professional income, you pay 24% flat tax. So this is what Spain gives you as benefit if you apply for this regime. The benefit is if paying 24% flat instead of be subject to the ordinary Spanish progressive tax rate. While in Italy, the Inpatriate regime scheme works slightly different, where you are subject still to the Italian progressive tax rates, which start from 23% up to 43% based on your income, but you are subject to a 50% deduction of your income. It means that if you're making 100,000 euro as revenue, 50% of it will be tax-free, will be in your pocket, and only 50% will be subject to the ordinary Italian progressive tax rates, which makes actually a real tax pressure that could span between 11.5% up to 21.5%. Okay? So this is the range in which you can fall into. And basically, if you stay in the middle, you're gonna pay even less than the Spanish Inpatriate regime. Now, the second point here is that in both regimes there is a limit. It's a threshold limit above which you cannot apply anymore this tax regime. And by chance, this limit, this upper limit, it's exactly the same for Spain and Italy. Okay? So in both cases, you can apply for those two regimes if you are below this threshold, 600,000 euro. And in both cases, this is also another common point in common, is that in both cases, if you are a high qualified individual with high skill, working for a technical field, or a manager, director, somebody that it's the country needed for developing his society and economy, you're welcome to apply for this regime, okay? So in both countries, the principle is exactly the same. So very similar. Also, the length of this regime. In Spain, it's 6 years, while in Italy, it's 5 years, okay? And also, this is the time that you can apply for this regime. Just another thing. In Italy, you can raise this to 60% deduction if you carry with you a child, a minor, either before or during 5 years of your time. So you can also increase this by 60%, and you're gonna pay even less than the Spanish version of the Inpatriate regime. And then also, in order to access this regime, basically, in Spain, you should have not been tax resident for 5 years. So 5 years as non-Spanish tax resident, while in Italy it's only 3 years by default. But if you move to Italy working for a company which is part of the same multinational group, then these 3 years become 6 years. And if you want to come back to Italy because you're already working, living in Italy, then you move abroad and you want to working back to the same Italian company, this goes up to 7 years, okay? So you should not have been tax resident in Italy for the last 7 years. So in Italy, this number can be changed, but in Spain, it's always 5 years. So basically, you don't care about this point if you never lived in any of those countries, okay? So this is quite important. Now, here the critical point. Let's talk about the pro and cons. So the extremely good advantages of the Spanish Inpatriate regime is that you will be subject to territorial taxation only, and this is extremely advantageous for certain categories of people. Territorial taxation only. So it means that if you're making money not just with your professional income in Spain, because in both cases you have to work in Spain or you have to work in Italy, because in both Inpatriate regime, this is also another parallelism, you have to work from Spanish territory and benefit from its tax regime, or from the Italian territory. Yeah, exactly the same principle. But for the rest of your income, if you have other incomes such as rental income or dividends, capital gains generated abroad, Spain doesn't tax you. Okay, it's completely tax-free for Spain, and you will be subject to withholding tax from the country you are producing this income. While in Italy, with the Inpatriate regime, you are still subject to the worldwide income. That's a big difference. So if you have other type of incomes generated abroad, in Italy will be subject to the ordinary progressive tax rate without these deductions. So it's extremely important to evaluate if you have only one stream of income, which is only your professional income, then it might be useful Italy because you pay slightly less than Spain, but if you have other type of income, maybe Spain is more convenient for you. So this is also to be evaluated. But another extremely important, so this I would call this as an advantages for the Spanish Inpatriate regime. But now let's see the cons and the advantages of the Italian Inpatriate regime. The Italian Inpatriate regime works for employees and self-employees, or even better, call them freelancer. Okay, so freelancer and employees can apply for this regime as long as they are carrying a work as a high skill qualified professional from the Italian territory. While in Spain, you can only apply for this regime if you're an employee. So basically you must be hired by a Spanish company or a foreign company that has a branch in Spain, or there are a lot of situations, but in general terms, if you want to apply for the Inpatriate regime in Spain, known as Beckam law, you have to be an employee. While in Italy, you can also be a self-employed or a freelancer. And in Spain, there is also a catch behind this law. You have to be very careful, because if you're an employee working for a foreign company which has no branch in Spain and you're working abroad, you're not subject anymore to territorial taxation, but you will be subject to the ordinary Spanish tax brackets as employee working abroad. Okay? So keep in mind, point number one, if you're a freelancer, you cannot apply at all for this regime, or if you apply for this regime and you are an employee that works abroad, it's an issue, because you will be still subject to the ordinary Spanish tax rate. So this doesn't make sense. So this is the disadvantages of the Spanish Inpatriate regime, while the Italian Inpatriate regime allows you to be also a freelancer. And that's it for today, guys. I think I gave you some important information about Italy and Spain, and I want to also tell you something about these Inpatriate regimes rules. So first of all, you need to evaluate which is the best country, and for this we can help you here in ESENtaxa to understand where you can move to Europe and pay less tax possible. But I can tell you more. If it happens to be in Spain because you already applied for this regime and basically your time is expiring, you are almost close to have 6 years, you can think to move to Italy and apply for the Inpatriate regime. Vice versa, if you're already living in Italy and apply for the Inpatriate regime, maybe it could be convenient to think about moving to Spain and apply for the Inpatriate regime from Spain. And then when this is finished, you move back to Italy. You see, thanks to this country, try to attract high qualified individual, you can basically play and try to get the benefit from all of them. Of course, it's not for everyone. If you're flexible, if you're able to move around, this is extremely important, extremely advantageous, but if you have family, maybe it could be a little bit more difficult. So every situation must be evaluated, and here in ESENtaxa we can help you to better evaluate which is the best country for you tax-wise. Thank you for your time, thank you for watching this video. Notification bell, like button please, to help us grow as a channel, and subscribe the channel to be always notified whenever we release this kind of content. See you to the next content, bye.